have to be.
Still debt free.
And a lot of that is, it sounds like a lot. Typically, our budget is around about 30-something million, but with the ARPA funds, when we have to transfer it to another fund to cover those expenses, it's categorized as revenue. So a lot of these numbers are overstated on both sides due to the transfers from funds to other funds.
Okay. Do you have a feeling on the pass-through amounts? What what the collector collects for the schools and the cities?
So those figures are actually not in, like, as far as what the collector does in terms of overs, those are our fee offices, and those aren't actually
So
included.
they don't actually go through your office?
Correct.
Who audits those?
We do it monthly.
Okay.
They have to provide us with monthly reconciliations of details of all the revenue and expenses.
That's a
We
big
do
job.
the journal entry into the Tyler system for our financial statement purposes, but we've never really set a budget for those figures, so those are not included in this.
Those are big dollars.
They are, yes. But as far as what gets turned over to the county, those numbers are in here, as far as our portions. So what goes to the assessor's office and the collector and the clerk, all of that's in here.
All on top of whatever, all else you have going on.
Yes.
Like
But
our liquor license?
yes, liquor licenses and all that, that's
Okay.
in there because you guys have your bank account held by the treasurer.
Correct.
So any office that holds their own bank account, like, so the sheriff's department has their commissary, and their sheriff, well, no, their sheriff fees is now with the treasurer, but juvenile has some, the collector, the recorder, they have their own bank account that's managed by them and not the treasurer. But we have to still review those and track them in our financial system.
I know earlier in the budget process, the LEST, the law enforcement sales tax, was a point of concern.
Yes.
How's that been handled?
General fund is covering it.
Okay.
So Prop P has that really significantly helped that. In the past, so as far as 2023 budget went, we would have had to have transferred to cover their shortage, a little over $1 million. But with the Prop P funds that have come in, general fund only had to transfer $375,000 this year. So for next year's budget, we're budgeting for $668,000 needed to cover that shortfall. We're hoping, obviously, that doesn't happen to help general funding. Hopefully, the sheriff's department is, with more property funds, can become more efficient. So.
And the general stabilization fund, I see, automatically bumped that up to 2.5.
Correct. So in the past, we kept that general stabilization at about $2 million. With our rising economy, it would be more mindful to increase that safety net. And so obviously it's not something that we can do in one budget year, but we're recommending that we start allocating funds up there to increase that central savings account.
Where you figure that'll go to from 2 to where?
Well, this year we've got it going up to, I think,
It's 2.5 now.
yeah, with interest, we keep getting interest off of that money every year, which luckily interest rates this past year have been up in our favor. So at the beginning of the year, we're looking at having about 2.3 million in there, and we're gonna transfer another 175,000 from general fund to that. And that's our,
Safety.
if the market crashes, that'll help us meet payroll and keep running.
They're kind of predicting it, like right now, we got splurge in it, but it's gonna go the other way.
Well, Louis said you
What do you
heard
think,
something
Louis?
from the state on next year's.
Well, the governor's consumer committee has projected it to be, after 7% growth this year, next year to be 0.7%.
They're, I
Basically
know,
level.
all indicators, they're figuring it's gonna go. the other way.
Maybe a 0.2% growth, maybe.
Level.
So we have flatlined pretty much all sales tax revenue. So it's meaning what we budgeted this year to come in is what we are budgeting for next year. Even though we've exceeded those sales tax figures this year, we don't think it's smart to budget based off of an increase like that.
So with that, commissioners, the auditor's office We're slightly optimistic for the coming year. Slightly is the operative word there, about incoming revenue. But as Amber said, we projected flat revenue for the coming year. But as you're well aware of, the cost of running government, the inflated prices that does not appear to be dropping immediately, we are urging office holders and department heads, particularly in the first 6 months of next year, to use caution on their purchases. And then maybe by June or July, we'll maybe have a better handle on it. But we recommend to the commission that you be very diligent about approving any excessive purchases in the next few months.
Other than that, do you see any red flags in
Yeah, every department.
Well, I mean, I think one thing that has made this a little bit more of an efficient process is keeping you guys involved from the get-go. You know, the departments submit their request, but having those meetings with the department heads so you can kind of understand how their budget works and what are those big cost items that they're gonna be wanting this year. I think that will really help as far as next year when people come to get approval to bid stuff out, you're already aware that this was in their budget, or if it was not. But as far as like a flailing flag, the biggest concern on mine is family treatment court. You know, their grant is ending, and it's not necessarily a red flag, but
It's
you know,
what,
that's-
it's not necessarily. what
the
is-
grant for
it's
that
ending.
program is gonna end in May of
Okay.
2024.
I didn't hear the rest of your statement.
That program won't continue unless they can get other funding, whether it be through the state or through the county or through another grant. I know they're both working diligently, and the presentation they gave, you know, was very, very, very good in my opinion, but that program helps a lot of people, and I feel like if they can't continue, that would be devastating for our county.
And I don't know what the judges would do without that program.
Correct.
I guess it's in.
Now, adult treatment court will continue, that one's funded through the state and through participant fees. But this one, this family treatment, that was a trial period, they're just looking, I think, and working with the state on how to continue the program, and,
How long's that been?
we got that for
Enacted.
5 years
5
originally. So it was $425,000 a year
Right.
for 5 years.
So it was funded, I mean, that was.
100% by a grant, the county doesn't pay for anything on that.
But you might consider, and we don't know what the legality is, with the opioid settlement, could possibly fund this in the event that they don't get that grant again.
Right now, we have about 400 in that.
Well, and the next concern, like he mentioned, is the opioid funds. Those, we have to start, you know, I know that a committee was formed, but their timelines as far as when that money has to be, you have to have so much spent, you know, by a certain time, and I don't know where that
You
will
talking
leave
about the
us.
opioid funds or what? Okay.
And we have that budgeted for, you know, for us to spend that next year, so hopefully there will be something that'll come of it.
Okay.
One of the things the other day when the Chief Justice was down, one of the things she was talking about is developing something that you brought up is
At the jail.
at the jail, an in-house treatment center because they have problems with their sentencing with people that are drug.
Well, Dan didn't pick up on it first, that's the first thing, they're right there.
So that's one of the things that hopefully they'll be able to spend some money on and treat people that we're
So
sending to
just
jail on
basically
average,
bringing
about
them in,
50% of the
taking
people
them
we're sending them in. Do
And I
you guys
found-
know how much interest rate we're getting on our funds? I asked Parks the other day, I know it's up. Is it, the current money market rates are about 4.5%. Is there any thought on this time about maybe taking like a 1-year CD with part of the funds or spreading them, because you can get about 5% on a 1-year CD right now. And it's, well, why would you do that when you get 4.5 on money market? Because if they do, in fact, Fed cuts the rates 3 times in
You're
the
talking
spring.
about
You're locked in at that.
You're locked in at that. We're talking about $100,000 in income off of our reserves. I mean, it's just a thought.
Talking
but
about a few $1 million on interest.
I don't know, is that something that would have to be defined in our depository agreement
I
with the
think
bank?
I think we
Or
probably have
is it
something,
an
I think,
option? I think it would be very smart, Lisa, not
Can I,
us to do
can
that
I
with
go
our
grab Parks
stabilization.
and see if he's here?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because, that, with them talking about lowering them 3 times in the first half, if we can get, if we can get 5% on, and put $500,000 or in $1 million into that, or ladder and put some 6 months and some.
Those general stabilization funds, I feel like would be perfect
That's
for
where I was
that.
going with that.
I mean, we have
That's
2
what-
million.
That's just
sitting there.
laying there.
It's not have to put all of it,
That's what
but
I'm
even
talking
if it's half.
And
Might
that'd be
ladder
2.5
that.
right quick.
But I'm not sure, as you mentioned, I'm not sure about what our agreement says on that.
I don't know, that's,
I can't, we read it.
We have an investment policy.
Yeah.
We had to get one a few years ago, but I don't know, I'd have to pull it to know
normally,
exactly what it says.
they have limits on your FDIC insurance, but most of
Rich
the time,
wants
if
to
it's
talk.
longer than that, they
Rich?
will outsource it.
Rich?
But Kevin, as you talk about doing that, would that money be locked up for the year? We couldn't touch it?
Well, it'd be locked up, but you pay a penalty for early
You,
withdrawal.
you would pay a penalty for early withdrawal, which is
But
a
you pay a
fraction.
penalty, yeah.
But you would, that's why you wouldn't put all 2.5, 2.3 million in there, you'd ladder it, you'd put some 6 months and something. Well, that's what I did with mine last week. That's what I took out Mark. They had questioned about the investment policy
We
with the
need a
bank.
stupid balance.
We're talking about the possibility of the Fed dropping interest rates. Would it be, this 2.3 million we have in reserves, should we put some of that at 6 month and a year CD at 5% rate right now? Is that, or is that even possible with our agreement with First State?
First of all, how much interest would you gain by that?
I mean, I don't have the rates in front of me, I don't know what they're offering on their CD rates right now, I know it's not 4%.
They had 5% in 1 year this, well, I got.
Well, I know it's gonna go 1 year, and then rates adjust, and then,
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, I think if anything this next year with election year, typically, if rates do adjust, I think they go down at that. My
Or we
personal.
can lock in at the current rate.
Yeah, I mean,
Get up for a
we
year.
were talking about not doing it all, but putting some of it, and that
We can-
in case rates go down, because the Fed's not dropping rates.
I just think regardless, our money in the sweeps account will be better, more interest in that than we're gonna have in a.
Okay, the thing says significant penalty will occur for early withdrawals. Does that ever go past the interest that you've earned?
Well, you basically just surrender your interest. If you forfeit your CD, if you cash it out early, you just
Get all the
surrender your
principal.
interest. Huh?
You get all the principal.
Yeah, you get your principal. I mean, that's your money that they're borrowing basically by putting into a CD. It's just you're surrendering your interest.
Okay.
So, I mean, if we're thinking about having to pull money out, then if we're not gonna keep it for the full term, then I would think you wouldn't wanna see
This is
this.
on our reserves.
Yeah.
We're talking about
actually adding
stabilization.
something if you have a disaster.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're talking about having to surrender the CD, then I wouldn't, that's even a thought, and I don't think we need to look at the CD. Cause with the sweeps account, I mean, it is liquid, that's a nice thing.
What's it paying?
4%, I mean, we've been at 4% for a while now.
We're
We're getting
getting
more than other
$1 million.
counties.
It's that percent.
I just had another county call me, they're trying, First State's trying, they're a smaller county, they're trying to get them to do sweeps, and they're only offering 2%. So, I mean, I think we've
Why?
got pretty good.
Why is there a difference?
I think it's because the total amount. I think they're a smaller county, so I don't think they have the funds we have.
I think they were thinking, add $1 million, put that in there for 5, if you could get a 5 or 5.5, and then ours drops in that account to 3% if they keep
That's what you're
adjusting
hedging
rates.
your bet,
That's
if
what
the
they're.
rates drop, and
yeah.
you're back down to
So-
3 or 2%.
I mean,
and we've got part of it locked in at 5.
In the last, deficit the last year, I don't think we've been below 4 on the sweeps.
Right, that's because rates have went up, and the Fed has tightened the
Yeah.
monetary supply and raised rates. But if it goes the other direction,
Well,
they're-
Kevin, I get that.
Yeah,
I understand that.
No,
I'm
we're
just
talking
saying,
about several $1 million that we,
But are we talking,
wanna
I'm just saying,
are we talking $10,000 for the mess, or are we talking, are we only talking about less $10,000, or are we talking big bucks?
Well,
You see what I'm saying? If
and
it's making 5.5 and ours, or if we can get the 5.5.
Well, you also
you're not getting
understand-
5,
Or
you're getting
5,
right?
5.
Well, what you're also, but where's that rate? Because most of these places, that's if it's new money. If you're a new customer, they're giving these rates. On our focus board meeting, we've been discussing this in the bank, is they're trying to get new customers, so they're offering these better CD rates. I don't know if we would get that CD rate because we are an established customer. So So that's the stuff you gotta look at, you can't just look at these ads that you hear on CD rates, there's more than just, it's just like if you hear on the radio, we can offer you 1% car loan, well, there's usually a catch to that, I mean,
And you wanna
it's
take
not
it out
just.
for a year.
I mean, I agree, I'm happy to look into more of the rates on these things, if we want to.
Who's our advisor down there for us?
I mean, Heather Phelps is the one that we contact with our sweeps account, I mean, she's the one managing the sweeps account for us.
I'd recommend we at least investigate it.
Well, I agree, I'm happy to get some
Yeah.
interest rates, well, I mean, we're gonna stay with First State, I don't wanna go to.
We have an agreement with that.
That's gonna become, well, I mean, we can always go.
Well, I think
get
it's part
it.
of our depository,
Yeah.
isn't it, in our investment
I
agreement?
mean, we could always, if we found a great deal with them, I mean, but then you're starting, I would prefer to stay
Moving
with
to
one.
different facilities, yeah.
There's
Well, this
always-
year alone in 2023, off of the general stabilization fund, we got over $90,000 in interest. So, and then we.
On 2 million.
Yes, and we've not moved any money from that fund since
Yeah.
we put it there, that I'm aware of.
So that's
Well, I
okay.
think
And I'm
like
happy about
Parks
that.
is talking about,
Yeah.
a lot in them banks, Kevin knows, depends on what you're out there looking for to build on. I mean, if you're established, you're gonna be a set rate, where like they're trying to bring new people in, they're gonna give them, but it's not always for the best. I mean, if you're pretty well set and established,
Well, I remember our folks board meeting, they brought those rates up and we're on the folks board, we're customers of the bank, and we're like, so, when I get these interest rates, we're talking about this for, maybe, what about, like, what if we move our money for a month and then we come back and we get
Yeah.
those rates, I mean,
I
be
got you.
customers, but.
well,
It's
most
like
of those
anything, it's
other
like-
ones will use that to gain
Yeah.
where they need the money at, or if they're getting customers or money,
Well,
or they're established.
Well, let me put this out for consideration. I know we don't wanna move banks, but what would be wrong with putting out a bid request for this?
I don't think you have to do that. First State, it should be advantageous to First State to look at our thing and say, with the projection of rates going down, should we have some of it in CDs, even if it's 4.8, laddered at 6 months and 10 months and a year, to protect ourselves if rates do in fact go back to where they were just less than 18 months ago.
And then when that
And
6
because
months is up.
we're gonna be able to raise our reserves $100,000 just on the interest if we ladder this, right? I'm not saying it's gonna drop, but it sure
Oh, it should
could.
drop.
You know?
I mean, I think that's what I said earlier, I think rates the next year, I mean, the feds have talked about, if there is an adjustment, it will be,
Well, that's what I'm saying, you might wanna talk,
I-
as
I'm
Louis
not-
said, talk to your person, say, should we be laddering this
I
with the
doubt
prospect
we
for
can get
this?
4.8% from First State right now. I mean, I'm really gonna be shocked if we get that this year.
Short term.
Well,
Investigate.
We'll check it out.
That's why I'm asking about, doesn't competition breed competition?
But for banks though, there's so much to it with their deposits, the amount that they have deposits compared to loans, there's so many formulas that show their success. It's not just, hey, interest rates are high, we're making tons of money, there's so many things showing their
They
damn
wanna talk
different.
I didn't even suggest going to some place or Edward Jones, because I know what their rates are, and they're at 20 basis points more. I'm saying stay with First State,
Well, we have to
but
stay with
ask,
First State.
is there something here we should ladder to protect ourselves, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we have the agreement with First State, I mean, we're.
Well, what's the
Well,
process?
to do a
That's
CD,
why I don't think we should bid.
you're right, we actually, when we do an ambulance board, we do a CD, we bid it out.
Yeah.
Nobody has beat, I'll throw it out, nobody's beat First State Bank at this point, but it's always going to.
Yeah.
Well, we got a
But
contract with them.
if you
but
go out.
I'm not, that's not saying we shouldn't be planning.
But no, I'm talking about if we go to CD, just plan and say, hey, let's see what we can get on it.
Most likely, if we went to another bank for a
Yeah.
CD, we probably would get better rate because of.
I don't think that's necessarily wise. I think that we ought to look at.
Well, no, I'm saying we could though, because we'd be a new customer there, I mean, they would see an opportunity to get their foot in the door,
Yes.
but, I just don't like mixing stuff up with banks.
got you.
And we have an agreement before, I don't know,
Yeah. Yep.
I'm happy to look at,
What is the process we go from here on this?
on looking at putting money
Looking
in a
at CD.
CD. I can look at interest rate, at least talk to the bank about it and see what. they-
And that really has nothing to do with our budget.
I was gonna
It's
say,
something
I
we
know,
can do.
this is a budget hearing if we.
Yeah, I don't know, I just, yeah.
Okay,
Um,
on a separate issue, will you please look into that?
Yeah.
Okay, back to the budget hearing.
That's all, that's all we've got, I don't know if there's anything else you wanna touch on, Louis. I will be surprised if our next year budget will be after 24. I know this is looking way in the future, but budget from here on out will be drastically different, mainly due to the ARPA funds will all be allocated, or supposed to be allocated by the end of this year, and
End of 23.
no, end of
Oh,
24,
end of 24.
as far as 24 budget
Budget.
year. We have to allocate all those funds, not necessarily spend them, but have them allocated to projects
Okay.
and.
We're not that far
anticipated-
from that, are we?
Spend it by 26, right?
Correct. Now, there is, the matter of the interest we have been earning on the ARPA funds. We were notified back a few months ago that that is not restricted to the ARPA guidelines, so that is something we don't necessarily have to worry about, but it will, that's something that's not
Roughly.
necessarily been allocated yet.
Roughly what is that dollar amount?
Oh gosh, 300,000, I think,
Okay.
ish.
Is that the take, sorry?
It is.
Ish.
Yeah, ish.
I've used.
I mean, yeah, this year alone, it's almost $220,000.
Okay.
This year a lot.
113 last year, and the year before that was 25.
Now, have we used all our P money?
Every dime
on
that's
the
coming
sheriff's
from Prop
department?
P has been transferred to
On the sheriff's department? I just want to
Correct.
we've used it all on the sheriff's department, is that what you're
Correct.
saying?
Yes.
And you're gonna give a report tomorrow with press here?
Sure.
Would you make sure that you mention that back? So that
Absolutely.
one attorney that I had a freaking argument on our parking lot about how they're lying, they will never use that money for that. I just want you to point
I think
that out to the press.
fund number that is.
How can you call them liars before they've lied? That's was my question. I'm pretty familiar with politicians, but you gotta give them a chance to
An
lie.
impending liar?
Hey, what's this picture?
So,
Like
to
that?
date, we have
It's
received,
Compass Movies.
That's from the Game Mario Kart Beach Island, New Jersey.
Beach.
through the end of 22
Is that
through
Mario
to
Kart?
date, we have received $2,117,437.95 of Prop P money that has been 100% transferred to the sheriff's
I'm just
department.
asking you that you say that tomorrow, you know, in front of the press.
Will do.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, before I go for motions, anybody else got any questions?
I just wanna thank them. Thank you guys.
Motion,
Good job.
Make them, motion we adjourn?
motion, yeah, we can't accept.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we don't, yeah.
Okay, motion we adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
All right.
Well,
thank
let me
y'all.
make a motion again too.
So I will go ahead and make these changes for tomorrow's meeting to the budget, and then I'll have copies of that final budget to be